Twitter is a really terrible place to try to change someone's mind. And what you should do if you find yourself discussing things with people you disagree with on Twitter.
Just assume they're a bot. Is that her advice?
Megan has had some recent interesting experiences with bots that we will talk about. So stay tuned for that, everybody. All right. Well, thank you so much to Kate and Emily. This has been really, really a great conversation.
Thank you. This is really fun.
Thank you. Yeah, this is great.
All right. So stay tuned for more. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Listeners, this is Kelly. Just wanted to let you know that Two Broads Talking Politics is looking for a sound engineer to join our team. Unfortunately, we have absolutely no budget to pay you, but if we start making any real money, you will be the first person we pay. So if you have any experience in sound engineering and are interested in joining our team, or even if you have no experience and just like playing with computers and think you could figure it out, please let us know at twobroadstalkingpolitics@gmail.com. That's TWO, twobroadstalkingpolitics@gmail.com. Hey everyone, this is Kelly, and we are back for our second segment of Two Broads Talking Politics, our important episode about how to talk to people you disagree with. And this time, Sophie and I are joined by Megan Romer. Hi, Megan.
Hi. Thanks for having me back.
Yeah, so friend of the pod, first person to be on 3 episodes. You guys may remember Megan from our What Happened Parts 1 and 2 episodes. So we are thrilled to have Megan back. And at the end of the previous segment, I said that I thought Twitter was a terrible way to talk to people you don't agree with. And so we've brought Megan on to talk about why Twitter is terrible. I should tell you, Megan, that Sophie just joined Twitter, or just rejoined Twitter, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
I did.
Godspeed.
I joined like 7 years ago or something, and I used it maybe 4 times, and I was like, this is stupid, and I stopped using it. And then it, became pretty politically relevant, I guess. So I got back into it.
I use it for about an hour a day and say this is stupid the whole time. So in and out, 5 minutes here and there, but yeah.
I had said when we were recording the rest of the episode that I thought Twitter was a terrible place to talk to people you disagree with.
Oh, it's the worst, unquestionably.
So I thought we could just sort of talk about why.
Sure. And it's funny, every once in a while some sort of well-meaning person, usually a white guy on the sort of liberal end of the center, it was like Kai Ryssdal or somebody a couple weeks ago posts like, the way to start repairing this is go follow 10 people you disagree with and then talk to them. And I'm like, yeah, no. I mean, I'll talk to people I disagree with about like international monetary policy or the Fed rate or something. That's fine. We can have civil discussions about that. But if you like actually think that trans people don't exist, or that DACA immigrants should all be sent back to wherever their parents came from, that sort of thing, it's like, yeah, I don't know that we can really talk about that.
Yeah.
I'm not sure there's
not in 280 characters.
No. And I actually do think sometimes, like, I have had heavy discussions about these things with people in real life, even in the past year, though I've been trying to sort of avoid it more often than not. But it is more pleasant to do it in person. It's sort of awkward, but you don't yell at each other and you don't swear at each other. And, I mean, I'm not necessarily saying like there's any value whatsoever in entertaining the opinions of Nazis at any point. But there are a lot of people who are not as far to the end of the spectrum.
Yeah. Megan is one of the few people I know in the world who is a verified Twitter. What does that even mean? You have like a little check mark?
It's a funny thing. Yeah, the infamous blue check, which a friend of mine described as like being a banana sticker of Twitter. Like it's not actually, it doesn't mean as much as people give it the weight of. I had an editor suggested to me a couple years ago, said, why don't you try to get verified on Twitter? Because for whatever project it was a friend of mine, not an editor I work with, but an editor friend who does a totally different genre of writing than I do, but she said that they specifically look for writers who have a verified check because things get shared more on Twitter, like the stats are better. So if you share a piece that you wrote, it's more likely to get shared more times. And so they will pay writers with a blue check a little better, or they'll specifically seek them out. And she was like, just get it, see if you can get it. And I said, sure, I should totally try that. So there's a form you can fill out, and you send a couple clips with your byline and a picture of your ID. It doesn't even have to be like a real photocopy. I think I held my passport up to my computer keyboard, or up to my computer camera, and sent it in. And I wasn't even really sure, like the clips weren't that impressive. None of my clips are that impressive. I haven't written anywhere, like I don't have like New York Times bylines or anything. But it was enough apparently, and it was and it has to be your real name. I think it's really hard to get verified under a pseudonym. So I did, and a couple weeks later, suddenly I turned on my phone one morning and Twitter updated, as it does sometimes, and I turned it on and boom, there was a blue check. So actually, I always look at Twitter in night mode, so it's actually a white check for me, but apparently it's blue for everyone else. So I have this stupid blue check, which is, like, to me, it's almost this joke. Like, I have seen little serious benefit come from it, other than I think you accumulate followers a little faster when you have one. People think, oh, she might be important, click and follow. So,
and it is something that trolls like to rag you about. So
yes. So what happened? What had happened was, sometime last week, a few prominent Nazis, as I insist upon calling them, because I think there's not a whole lot of value in slicing and dicing the far right in terms of who's a Proud Boy and who's an alt-righter and who's a Nazi and whatnot. So a few Nazis lost their checks. They lost their blue check. Twitter de-verified them. And somebody, I'm trying to remember which one, Baked Alaska. Like, seriously, Baked Alaska? All right, so Baked Alaska, who's very popular among right-wing young male 4chan type trolls, lost, he got banned from Twitter completely. And actually promptly made himself a new account that was at Not Baked Alaska or something. And they figured that out in like 10 seconds, and he got banned from that one too. Like, these are not smart people. So, okay, so one of the people who got banned, or who got blue checked, was Laura Loomer, who's one of these independent journalists, who has said really hateful things about Muslims in particular. And there was some hubbub with her a few weeks ago because she said something about, like, I'm late to this press conference because I can't find an Uber that doesn't have a Muslim driver, which isn't even like, she didn't even say an Arab driver, like a driver with a Muslim name, like a Muslim driver. Like, you can know by looking if their name, like, that's not actually how religion works. So anyway, so she Uber banned her publicly, and then Lyft banned her publicly, and it was like this whole thing. Like, okay, so if you're gonna be like a public Nazi, don't flaunt it. Mm-hmm. But so she lost her blue check. Twitter took it away. She, in particular, somehow sort of incited people to go looking for blue checked people who had said things that they deemed to be racist against white people. Mm-hmm. So this is where the story becomes complicated, because 2 years ago, summer 2 years ago, there was a theater shooting in the town where I live in Louisiana. A white nationalist shot up a theater, and 2 people were killed, including a woman I knew very well, and I'd known her for a long time, and she was a good friend of ours, of both mine and my partners, and it's devastating, and she was just brilliant, and an artist and a musician and a local business owner, and one of those sort of like make it happen people who was always sort of inciting everyone to like do cool new things and start stuff, and her presence has been legitimately missed in the last 2 years. I think you don't realize how much some of these people really are linchpins of the artistic community. But yeah, so she was killed. So I was mad that night, and I tweeted. Are we allowed? Should I bleep myself?
You can be as explicit as the tweet is. Go right ahead.
The tweet was, "Fuck white people and their fucking guns and their bullshit gun culture and all of it. God damn it." Which is Okay, like this is not great prose. This is not like I'm not going to argue that this is like one of my better composed tweets of all time. However, it is not explicitly violent. It is not, the reason Twitter deverifies people is if you're inciting violence or making threats. So fuck white people is not a threat. And I think most people who I know, and certainly who I was interacting with at that time, took it in the spirit in which it was intended, which is what I was really angry at, was white gun culture, not specifically white people, sort of in a, it's like anything when we're like, all right, ban men, it's like, I don't actually want to ban men. I mean, I do, but not really.
Ban men from power, maybe.
Exactly. We just want to establish a matriarchy, okay? And they just get out of the way and open jars occasionally. But for all it, I just, my hands are too small to get around those pasta jars. I just can't do it. So it's this old tweet. It had probably 5 or 6 likes at the time, and a couple people responding saying like, I'm really sorry, I know this is really hard, and so on. It's like not a big deal. And if you look at the context of that night, I tweeted a bunch of other angry stuff. It was generally a it was like a hot issue kind of night. So anyway, so what becomes fascinating is when you watch the swarm develop. So this tweet got found by somebody. Some Twitter user with 50 followers or something posted it. I assume, and I don't know for sure, but I'm guessing, and I didn't go looking because I don't have the stomach for it, that it got posted on 4chan or somewhere like that. Because within moments after one person retweeting it and saying like, how dare you, suddenly I'm getting like this flood of responses, and most of them were from those very obvious, they're not bots, because bots would be like a robotic responder. They're trolls from troll farms, which are, it's like like we have like social media firms with like a bunch of people who like sit there and run a bunch of social media accounts. Well, that's kind of how the troll farms look, as far as I can tell, and as far as anybody can tell, and as far as the sort of interviews they've done with people who openly have worked for them. They're, rooms full of relatively young workers on computers with whatever client they use to, whether it's TweetDeck or something like that, to run 30, 40, 50, 100 accounts at once. And they're sort of cycling through these pat statements, and they tend to say the same things. They tend to, and they reuse talking points. Their accounts tend to be really like, the names are really similar. Like, I don't know why I haven't figured out how to make the names better, but it's usually a name and then some string of random numbers. So first that starts, so that these start cycling, and it's I'm getting responded and retweeted by a lot of these. And then I just turned off notifications because who cares? And it's like, all right, whatever. Like, I'm not gonna like watch this right now. But by the next morning, so it was, I went to bed probably around midnight or 1, because I, for the life of me, cannot go to bed before 11 o'clock. It's terrible. So I woke up the next morning, and I looked, and it had been retweeted like 1,000 times. The original one that said this person should lose their verification or lose their blue check. Laura Loomer herself had retweeted it. A couple of big, as far as I could tell, Nazi Twitter accounts had mentioned it. It was just bizarre. But by the next morning, it was real people interacting with it. Mostly relatively similar demographic, older white guys, talking about their guns, talking about, and a lot of people like sent me pictures of their guns. And my my standard answer was like, it's not nice to send women unsolicited dick pics. really impolite. Watching the anatomy of this roll out, watching it start with the farms and then trickling into like the real people, it was like, wow, you guys are getting hosed. Like, I'm just like watching you do it. And I know, I don't want to say it only happens on the right, because it totally happens on the left. You see it, especially in the sort of like Louise Mensch style, like lefty conspiracy kind of circle.